may I also welcome to the gallery all the survivors of symphysiotomy and the people who are promoting their cause. Minister, can I welcome you once again to the Chamber? You're a regular visitor here and always a very well visitor here. Symphysiotomy was advocated in 1597 and the first procedure on a human being took place in 1797. Think of how primitive society was at that stage. And one would think that medical procedures that were used in those ancient days would have well been left behind in the 20th century. However, it is estimated that 1,500 Irish women, unknowingly and without consent, underwent symphysiotomies during childbirth between 1944 and 1992. Survivors were left with severe lifelong after effects, including extreme pain, impaired mobility, incontinence and depression. I just cannot understand how on earth such a barbaric procedure was still being carried out up to as late as 1992. Obviously, some in the medical profession will say it was a medical necessity. Others firmly believe it was a religious ethic. Senator McSherry said there today that he was no medical authority. Neither am I. I am no medical authority. But what I am is a mother. I gave birth to my first child in 1981. And I could have, unknowingly, been one of the victims too, as I had a very, very difficult childbirth. But thankfully, I did not have to endure such a procedure. And I think, in no disrespect to the men in the room, but I think that you really have to have given birth to understand how vulnerable one is during childbirth, especially if it is your first child. It may come as a surprise to some people, but women were treated by some, and I repeat the word some, gynecologists, as if they were imbeciles. I distinctly remember sitting up in my bed the morning after giving birth when the gynecologist was doing his rounds with a nurse, and he asking the nurse beside me, how is this woman feeling today? He simply could not address the question to me inside in the bed. I mean, that was unbelievable. Having sat and listened to the stories, to the harrowing and heartbreaking stories of the surviving victims, some sitting here in the gallery today, it is my duty to stand up here today and make a plea on their behalf. Many of these women, who at a young age believed that the procedure they underwent was the norm, they carried this secret with them for many, many years, afraid to speak up, afraid to take on the system, being dismissed by their GPs and being told that the procedure was a medical requirement and had to be carried out. We now know that this was not the case, and we see the devastating consequences for women who were victims, who had no choice in the matter. Women who were victims of this barbaric act have suffered years and years of physical pain, mental and social torment and suffering. Some have outlined in detail to us their personal and intimate details of the consequence of living in the aftermath of symphysiotomy. Some are afraid to go out in public due to incontinence. Some have indicated that their sexual life suffered, and as a consequence, marriages have broken up. Some are in such pelvic pain that they are now years and years later on morphine. I welcome the introduction of the obstetrics and gynecology clinical program, which is being led by Professor Michael Turner, and the aim of this program is to improve healthcare choices for women. I very much welcome that, Minister. And while I acknowledge that the HSE has put in place facilities and support services to help the victims of symphysiotomy, they are still awaiting the long-promised Walsh report, which is due to be published on the 1st of September last year, and I'm delighted that you're saying today that we will have that report before the end of the month. Minister, as you will be aware, many women have only recently become aware of the fact that what happened to them was symphysiotomy, and many of them are being barred by the statute of limitations and the issue of delay. There are now only about 200 surviving victims, and the amending of the statute of limitations would surely be less expensive on the state than a redress board. Surely all victims of such a barbaric act, women who put their trust and their consultant, the doctor who delivered their babies, have a right to access to justice. Minister, and I know, Minister, that you are one of the most caring ministers that I have come across, and I can say that with my hand in my heart, and that is seen every day in your work on mental illness. So what I am asking you today, Minister, is to go back to the Cabinet and make a case on behalf of all these women and request the Minister for Health to consider amending the statute of limitation for at least a year. Give these women a right to natural justice. Finally, I commend the women who have spoken up, who have highlighted the misjustice. In particular, I pay tribute to Olivia Carney in being the first woman to pursue a case through the courts, and to the groups who are promoting the cause of survivors of symphysiotomy. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Senator Darragh Bryan.